Welcome back. This is episode 3 of the introduction for Discipling with Power. When we finished the last episode, right after it was done, you had an idea that came to your mind from your experiences of what being a disciple meant. You thought of an example that came to your mind.
Yes. As you were mentioning learning and practicing and emulating, the person popped in my head, Michael Jackson, James Brown, Jackie Wilson, all these greats that he always said were greats. He would watch them. He would, I remember one time in an interview of his, he was saying that he would get mad at the cameraman when they were filming James Brown because they would show him from the waist up, and he wanted to see his leg work, and they wouldn't show it. So when you were mentioning that, it made me automatically think of Michael Jackson, and from what he started out doing to what he eventually became later in life, a great entertainer, millions of fans all around the world, just because he wanted to be what these people were, that they were to him when he was a younger boy.
So in your example, the student became a master of his art form, of his practice, of his exercise, of the discipline that he put in and the work. And you can draw on things like that for examples. You have people who are very notable and very successful in what they've done. Whether you're talking about Michael Jackson with his success in music, Michael Jordan with his success in basketball, you can talk athletes endlessly. There's names that will come up that you can think of that they've gained this great success. And when you go and you learn about them, you're going to find that they started off learning at the feet of someone else who had already mastered certain skills or certain ideas, and then the type of practice and exercise and emulation and things that they did to develop themselves to the point that they got where they got and were able to achieve what they did. And here we are. Well, we can't achieve the perfection of Jesus Christ.
Right.
We can gain a lot in our lives from the pursuit. And it's in that kind of bringing that kind of greatness into our lives. Being able to make ourselves the best version of ourselves that we can be in the process. And be able to have that as something that extends, because when you start with yourself, it easily extends to the communities around you, your family, the people you work with, the people you go to school with, the people that you hang out with, your friends, other associations that you have, because you are extensions of each other. There's a network that goes into that, and the more you add to yourself, that becomes an addition to other people. And hopefully you can also, some of them will come with you on the journey. Others will decide they don't want to go that direction and they will disappear out of your story. And other people will come and join in along the way. And as you build that network of strength in what you're doing, Michael Jackson brought in, and he had a network with people like Quincy Jones, who strengthened and empowered what his pursuits were. And then at a certain point, Quincy Jones disappeared, and other people came in and joined him because of where he was going. You're going to have those experiences in your life, and you join with people who are building you up as you're building them up, and you all gain and succeed from it. And that's part of the power of this discipleship and this community and this group, when you're working for a shared purpose. So we're talking about it as far as focusing on being a disciple of Jesus Christ. We've talked about those 6 principles of discipleship and applying them specifically to this. We'll start with study, because you have to study and learn from the person who is teaching you, in this case Jesus Christ. When you are studying, what are you learning?
We're learning what he taught. When you're studying his life and his ministry, the things that he did, you're learning the kind of person that he was.
Okay. If you were to kind of put in a few general blocks, what did he teach?
Love.
Okay.
He taught compassion. He taught how to be kindness. It was all based on basically love. That was the main focus.
So you can learn to love, learn to love people around you. You can learn how to live your life instead of just being alive. Learn how to live. You can learn how to gain peace and joy in your life. He teaches what the purpose of life is. There's a reason behind this. So these are some key things that you can learn. Now, when it comes to learning at the feet of Jesus Christ, he is not present in the room. We can't go down to church and have him at the pulpit giving us a sermon.
Correct.
He lives, but he's not immediately present where we can just go and have him teach as he did when he was giving the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount.
Mm-hmm.
So today, what ways do you have to learn from him and at his feet?
At his feet. Well, there are pastors and bishops and fathers and, that you can learn from there. There are mouthpieces who speak directly with him and then relay that information to us.
Prophets.
Prophets, yes.
Mm-hmm. So learning from other people,
Mm-hmm.
learning from prophets. How about some more direct sources like prayer, reading scripture,
That's true.
and personal revelation?
Very true.
All of those things are included as ways in which we learn from him. And I know some of that sounds like it's just routine Sunday school answers, but that's because they're fundamentals. And we're going to stick to fundamentals because when you start reaching beyond those, it gets really overwhelming. And we don't want to reach out there yet. Let's stay with the core fundamentals, the drills. If you were doing sports and you're trying to train. So when you're learning, so that's the first part, is the study. The next part of the learning is exercise. What is exercise?
Bettering yourself. Exercise is making yourself more physically apt than you were before.
Okay. So that's why you exercise as well.
Right. There's physical exercise, and there's brain exercise, mental exercise.
Exercise usually comes in the form of repetition and in challenging yourself to step above whatever level you're at. So in that case with spirituality, sometimes it's challenging yourself to make some commitments in your life that might be a little bit hard, or developing a core principle in yourself that might require a little bit of personal sacrifice or some challenge along the ways. Exercise is in doing something repetitively to develop the technique and the skill and things that come with it as well. So the exercise is that part. And the next one kind of ties into it. They're really similar, exercise and practice. The big difference is exercise is learning. It's just going through exercises and routines. Practice is actually doing it. So it's the difference between going out to do your training day when you're exercising or working in the gym and playing the game. But this is a situation where when you get on the field, losing is as rewarding as winning. Getting out there and practicing it. If you were practicing something, how often should you practice?
As much as you possibly can.
As much as you possibly can, at least daily, right?
Right.
Okay. And what does consistency like that do?
It becomes habit over time.
Yes. I would say that it becomes more than a habit. A habit first. But in my experiences with doing some of these exercises that I've been doing and that I'll be introducing, there's this interesting transition. You start doing something, and at first you're kind of having it's a task that you're checking off a list every day. I've done my time, I've done my chore, I've done it. But if you're pursuing it with some intent, and if there's more to it than just checking it off your list, there's something that you're pursuing, it's part of your goal. You've got a vision ahead of you of where you're going. Then in doing that, it starts to become a habit that you do it every single day, and you don't need the checklist anymore. It just becomes something you do. but then it kind of gets stuck as part of just a routine. And it can lose importance. It can lose emphasis. It can lose impact because you're no longer looking for the challenge. Now, when you still approach it, and this is part of the mindset, to where you're approaching it with a curiosity every day like it's new. If you're constantly approaching it as, how can I challenge myself with it? What am I going to get out of this today? And you're doing that every single day. You start having experiences and growth and things with it where it becomes more than a habit. It really becomes internalized and a part of who you are. That becomes a scenario where if you don't do it, it feels wrong. And it becomes so ingrained that it's expected not just by you, people around you expect you to do it. And they couldn't imagine you not being that person who does that. And it goes beyond habit, it becomes a part of your character. So the idea is to get beyond, go through, start it with things being a task, becoming a habit, and then becoming a part of your character and who you are. And it can be a long journey. Some things you'll get that way quick. It comes so natural to you that it comes quickly. And then there are other things where the journey is much longer and you have to have a lot more failures along the way. And it's different for everybody because your strengths and weaknesses are different than mine. Well, take some humility and some willingness to fail and enjoy it. We used to say in the Army, embrace the suck. Sometimes you have to just hold on to it. Like, going through, we're going to drive through this. Here we go. Hold on.
Embrace the suck.
There you go. And that's part of the practice. And as we said, practice is, and that's why I say that practice is part of being and who you become.
Right.
But the other part is now adherence. Now when I say adherence, to you, what is adherence?
To be honest with you, adherence is not a word that I am very familiar with.
So you don't know a definition for it?
I do not.
Okay.
I've heard the phrase, but I've never understood what it meant.
All right. Let me present it to you this way. Adherence is to live by a set of rules or guidelines.
Okay.
So you work in security.
Yes.
And you're working in a prison.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And there are some very specific rules and guidelines that you have to follow in your job.
Correct.
What is one of those rules?
Keeping them, the detainees, doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Why is that important?
Because if they have no rules, then all chaos will break out.
Okay. And so you have to adhere to that in the process. And sometimes your adherence is being where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, following through on the tasks that you need to follow through so that the detainees continue in where they need to be so you don't have that chaos. So adherence, when I managed movie theaters, we had a show schedule. Movies are supposed to start at a certain time on a certain screen. And if you didn't adhere to that, you put on the wrong movie, put it on at the wrong time, put it, whatever it was, chaos ensues. But it's adherence. Now, if we're looking at it from the discipleship aspect, Jesus Christ gives us commandments.
Yes.
So, and I'm going to give you adherence at 3 different levels. So commandments, these are the ones where he says, do this, don't do that. And there's really no swaying left or right one way or the other. This you do, this you don't do. It's a commandment.
Right.
Okay? So no equivocation there whatsoever. And those exist. All right? Some of them fortunately have blessings, promised that come with them.
Right.
Honor your father and thy mother that your days may be long upon the land. Right.
Yeah.
Give tithes that he may open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing that there's no room to receive it. Awesome. Okay. But those are do's and don'ts. Pretty straight. Now you have this next segment out that these are admonitions. Okay. Because there's not always in life on these a clear set of do and don't. But It's more like a, you should do this. It's going to be for your benefit. It's the best choice type of scenarios. These tend to fit more in the Beatitudes type of realm of things. Be this kind of person. He's admonishing you and encouraging you in a particular direction. And then you have counsel. And counsel, because it varies so broadly by who you are and what your circumstances are in life and what you're dealing with, counsel isn't the same for every person at all times in all circumstances. Even in your own life, the counsel for something will change as far as what you need and what's best for you. So these are the things. And now as you receive commandments and admonitions and counsels, it's adhering to those things are your way in discipleship of following and being a person more like Jesus Christ by doing that.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
Yes.
Any questions?
No. Good.
You looked really excited there for a minute.
Because it made sense.
Okay. Well, I'm glad it made sense. Now, let me give you something a little bit harder. No, it's not hard. This is easy. All right, this is really cool. But as far as with this adherence, there's also, we have a couple of tools at our disposal. Principles and morals. These are things that people seem to treat as being very flexible, and what you set as your principles and morals might fluctuate depending on your point of view and your preference. And to some extent that's true, because the morals of the world are certainly not the same as the morals for God.
Absolutely.
And it goes in different directions. What is important is that you establish principles and morals for yourself in your life, because they provide boundaries. These are guidelines for you in your life. This is where you establish what you will do, what you won't do, what you will accept, what you won't accept. And that is determined by who you want to be, what you want to achieve, what you want to do. And if what you want to do is be a disciple of Jesus Christ and become more like Him, then you establish those principles and those morals with boundaries that guide you in that direction. Things like the word of wisdom is part of it is commandment, part of it is admonition. But you establish principles for yourself, such as, I'm not going to partake of alcohol.
Right.
You make that's a principle for you in your life. You hold yourself morally accountable to follow that. When you establish that as, that's who I'm going to be, and that's what I'm going to do. And then you can take another something out of the same idea. Drinking caffeinated beverages. Coffee and tea is specifically outlined, other things are not. And we've received counsel in recent years that we shouldn't, and we should give them up. Now, I've heard somebody give us the example of, will drinking a cola keep you out of the temple? Probably not. Right. No. Although, if you have committed to live the word of wisdom in that way, if you establish the principle for yourself that because you've received the counsel to give up caffeinated beverages, you're not going to drink them anymore, you make that a moral obligation for yourself, and you set that guideline, and you adhere to that, then if you do drink a caffeinated beverage after that, and you're sitting in an interview for the temple recommend, and you're asked if you live the word of wisdom, you would have a hard time honestly saying yes. And if you were to do so, if you were to answer with real integrity, you couldn't. You would need to address that, because you committed yourself to that, and then you didn't stick with it.
Right.
Okay. So, principles and morals and those guidelines. I know. That's why I said it was hard, because...
Well, along the lines of caffeine, it's good that it's odorless, tasteless, because they make sodas without caffeine that you can still drink and be conscious.
I was only using it as an example, but I see what you're saying.
I know. So,
But principles and morals will be a guiding compass in your life as you do those things. And then we have, as we're going into being, you have emulation. With emulation, what is emulation? You mentioned Michael Jackson.
Yes.
He was emulating his heroes
Yes.
in dance. Okay. Now, in emulating Jesus Christ, in that case, would be emulating Christ-like attributes. An attribute is a characteristic or a nature that somebody has. So, making those characters your own as well, and doing those same kinds of things. So, I want to play a little bit of a game with you.
Okay.
Okay. So, what we do is we're going to go back and forth, and we're going to each name a Christ-like attribute.
Okay.
I'll do one, you do one, I do one, you do one. See how many we can come up with.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
All right. So, charity,
Faith,
courage,
diligence,
love,
kindness,
humility,
patience,
ooh, you took mine, hope,
forgiveness,
listening,
caring,
sharing,
teaching,
work,
understanding,
integrity,
compassion,
stewardship, do that one.
grace.
There you go. It's a long list.
Yes.
There's a lot of characteristics and traits, and some of them are interrelated. I mean, charity and love. There's faith and hope. There's a lot that tie together there. But being able to make those characteristics ours make us more disciples of Jesus Christ. If we are following in his footsteps. So we're learning at his feet, and then we're doing those things to emulate him. And finally, the one that tends to be the hardest for people. Sharing. What makes that so hard?
You're afraid of the outcome. Or of what's going to happen because you shared.
Right. There tends to be a fear of other people.
Yes.
And the way that they're going to respond. How would you like to be able to be in a place where you can face that fear down and it doesn't bother you so much?
That would be nice.
And as a disciple of Jesus Christ, what would a disciple be sharing?
The gospel. The things that he caught.
That's in a simple term. Yes, the gospel. You can also share your testimony of the process that you've gone through. You can share your testimony of individual gospel principles by themselves. And you can share with people invitations to be disciples themselves. And that's the part that you're afraid of the outcome.
Correct.
Yes. Do you realize that the disciples of Jesus Christ that were left after he was resurrected, they considered it an honor to be persecuted for their testimony? There were some that took it way too far, taking themselves out to the desert and persecuting themselves for it, which kind of defeats the purpose. But they felt that being able to share their testimony, share that message with people, and be worthy enough that they were being persecuted as he had been, or for his name. They felt like that was, in a way, it's as if they got crucified alongside him, and they considered that an honor. When you think of it in those terms, we're not having to deal with that.
Right.
We do live in a world where there is a lot of hate, there's a lot of division, there's a lot of derision for people who don't agree with, you don't agree with me, so I don't want anything to do with you, and I'm just going to shout you down, and I'm going to be cruel to you, and I'm going to hate you for everything. And to be in a place where if somebody does that, I'm okay. And it doesn't hurt. And I'm not offended.
Right.
And it doesn't get me upset or rattled. That is a wonderful place to be in. And I'm not there yet either, but I'm learning to get there. And that's what part of this journey is. So the first part for the discipleship is working on me so that I'm on the right path. I'm going in the right direction. I'm following the right master. And I'm learning those things. And as I'm doing that, being able to reach out to others and inviting them, come join me on this path. Let's go.
Right.
and lift them up as well. And you don't have to have everything mastered and be perfect in order to do that. Which is funny, because there's this idea of, well, I'm not going to follow you because you're a hypocrite, because you still sin. Well, yeah, I do. But that's because...
everybody else does too.
Right. We're not there yet. That's the point. So, this is the journey we're going to be taking. As we go into the next video, I'm going to present to you the next challenge, the program that's going to begin the exercise, begin the practice, begin the now I can't even think of what I'm saying, the consistency that you need to take something from being a task to a habit to part of your character, and be able to open those doors of learning and study and really take it somewhere. And that's where we're going next.